Hey everyone, welcome. Good afternoon and good morning, I think, for some of us, right, Carlos? While we're waiting for more folks to trickle in, I'm waiting for you with a question that I'm very curious. We're talking about authenticity today. So I'm curious to know, being authentic comes easy or hard to you? Where would you place yourself on that continuum? All you have to do is hover over and stand your choice. Hola, hi Kate. Okay, we're somewhere on this. AJ said I'm easy. Okay, undecisive, moving around. Yes, I know that. It's hard. Okay, so it's not a tough crowd today, Robert. Everyone's finding the relatively easy bending, so I think we should be good.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to the results from all of this then, as everybody shares.
Beautiful. Welcome everyone. I am going to reduce the volume for a second there. My name is Anna Maria. I am leading the Butter Community Project and very excited to kick off our Spark Summit today. We're spending the afternoon or beginning of the day together with awesome people running different businesses that cater to agency owners. So we're talking all about biz. How do we position ourselves? How do we sell more and better? And how to better our energy? So we've got lots of good stuff on the agenda. And the person to kick the session off is Robert Patin. I'm always mentioning your last name with like a French accent. Is that?
It is actually a French last name, so you're one of the only people to pronounce it correctly.
I love it. He's the founder of Creative Agency Success and a two-time international best-selling author. He's written 2 books, The Agency Blueprint and The Practical Agency. And Robert focuses on working with clients to manifest their dream business into reality. How cool does that sound? 2 decades of experience working in finance and also over a decade working with creative agencies. Robert is able to expertly partner with clients to guide their business to achieve their goals. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to hear more about, standing out through authenticity today. And before I pass the talking stick to you, I want to do a quick check here and see how many of us are familiar with Butter. I know that many of us are. Head over to the left side of the screen, everyone. Find the React button down if this is your very first time in this platform.
Wow, we've got all familiar people.
Well, we've also, so I was ready to do a quick onboarding tool, but I guess there's no need for that. So Robert, thank you so much for being with us today. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm really excited about the session today. I'm going to go ahead and throw into the chat a worksheet for you guys can follow along with me. Just as an FYI, for me, this is it's not a teaching session. This is a doing session. So we're all going to work together to actually work on being able to elevate your authenticity within your agency, being able to differentiate your agency in the session today. I like for you to leave with a done list, not a to-do list. I've been to so many different conferences in my life where I leave with this pile of notes of all the things that I need to do, and then they end up on my desk collecting dust, and I don't want that to be the case for you. So I'd love for you, if you're in a place that allows for you to be on camera, for you guys to be on camera so that I can see all of your faces and we can interact with each other and actually do some work together. So to start off, the goal for today is for us to be able to have you stand out and ultimately be able to differentiate yourself. Really being able to attract your ideal client, your real true soulmate client. What I'd love for you guys to do, if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor, and actually going to your website right now, and I want you to grab and just copy and paste your headline text from your website into the chat for me.
We need a suspenseful sound here in the soundbar.
We help people
Do-do-do-do.
and products grow based in Amsterdam, innovating with teams across time zones and cultures. Get your flow changes done in hours, not days. We enable your team to create inclusive and accessible programs using design thinking, run more engaging sessions. Oh, that's Butters. I was like, oh, that's an interesting one. All right. Well, the primary thing that I see when I'm going across agency websites, 9 times out of 10, they end up actually sounding the same. The reason being is that when a lot of agencies actually go to try to determine what their differentiator is, one of the first things that they're actually doing is going out into the public and looking at other agency websites. And ultimately, you're not really being authentically you. You're actually trying to absorb what everyone else is looking like. And I'm sure many of you have heard the saying, "The cobbler's kids has no shoes." And you get to work with clients doing these things all the time, but you don't get to spend the time working on your business. And what I want you to start to think about is I want you to stop neglecting yourself and your agency and actually dedicating time to really being able to get deep within your own agency and actually work on growing your business. The thing that I hear and I see across so many different sites is like, we are the best at blank, number one agency in your blank partner, are like typical things that I see across so many agency websites. And ultimately doesn't really distinguish you, right? If that's the headlines that you end up having. And what this ends up creating is a race to the bottom. You end up sounding like every other agency out there. And it means that the only thing that the client can really evaluate your agency on is price. It causes low profit margins. It causes you to be really strapped from a resource perspective, especially smaller agencies, because you, as the owner, are the one that has to deliver so many of what it is that you have to actually deliver to clients because you don't actually have the financial resources. You end up discounting your fee, knowing I can actually do the additional work myself, which actually kind of continues that cycle of not being able to work on your business. And in those sorts of situations, we end up in instances where we end up losing business to the likes of Fiverr, of Upwork, of Design Pickle. And clients end up saying things like, we're too expensive. And the worst part is that it actually ends up being in a place where we feel like we have to put something on in order to be able to sell. It doesn't have us being truly authentically ourselves, because now we have to put on this entirely other persona where now we feel like we have to convince the client of our value, of our worth, which I don't know for any of you, but that's not something that I enjoy having to do. I like to be me, and I'm seeing some positive reactions that resonates with all of you. Awesome. So the thing that I see is there's so many instances, and as I'm clarifying, we're trying to be someone else, and we're focused on the competition, focused on what other agencies charge, making us feel less like ourselves. It ends up removing our confidence. And then we even start looking at how the competition sells, so that and over time, it has created across the entire industry the inability to distinguish ourselves. And it really just doesn't feel nice. And the industry has, quite frankly, just become commoditized. And I think it's extremely, extremely sad for me to see that, because the agencies I work with are so incredibly talented. They do such phenomenal work for their clients and change the lives of their clients. And it's this thing that like just makes my blood boil in so many instances of just like, why is the agency the only one that doesn't benefit from their talent? Everyone else gets so much out of it except for you. And I want to change that for every single creative I work with. But to be quite frank, we were sold a lie from the sort of Mad Men age, right? The traditional large full service agency model. And it caused so many of us to adopt this traditional agency model where we think that the client is the prize, that we need them, that we have to be full service in order to be able to keep a client. We have to be everything to everyone. We end up creating our systems to be built around the client. And so the agency is kind of built by accident. We end up looking at our systems and our processes within the agency, and it doesn't even resemble us anymore. And it's we end up looking at it, and it kind of ends up feeling like this Franken business, this monster that we created, rather than this thing that creates energy and fulfills us at this point. And we end up with these 8%. The average net margin for a lot of agencies is 8% or less, especially as they get to scale. And agencies are working incredibly long hours, huge amounts of churn, because you're working nights and weekends. And so the new modern agency that I'm here to try to help facilitate is mutually beneficial relationships between the agency and the partner. And that's what business should be. Specialized agency with truly productized services with a depth of knowledge that is able to help the client and being able to actually create more scale. Systems that generate results for both the client and for the agency, and being able to be at a 25% net profit, at the top 3% really of what agencies are able to earn, and really being able to have the freedom to enjoy life. I don't know that I have to preach, and for the American audience, I have to try to get them to not believe that their lives need to be dedicated to their work. I don't think I have to preach that to the European audience. I think you guys are, as an American myself, as you can hear in my accent, it's definitely something that Protestant work ethic has been like pushed into my head anyways. And so what I want you to be is to be able to be yourself. When we are who we are at our core, people that we are meant to work with will gravitate to us. And in the end, we'll have and be working with the clients that we truly enjoy. We won't end up having imposter syndrome. We'll end up feeling more energized. We'll be really the happiest form of ourselves. And we can ultimately change lives for yourself, for your family, for your clients, and for your team. So a little bit of an interesting story. When I was getting my fine art degree, there was someone that came in and did a talk that I thought was quite interesting. And he said something along the lines of, I can pretty much guarantee every single person in this room is a better photographer than me. But you know why I'm going to get the job and you're not? Because people like me. And at the time, I didn't really fully cement. And what I didn't really start to really get at that point was that people actually work with people that they want to spend their time with, right? They want to spend their lives with. And when it comes to a sell, they have to be able to have a trust in you, people that they can connect with. And that core foundation of any human relationship is that trust, that safety. And the thing about being truly magnetic is people talk about the passion, the thing that they do with this amount of energy. I've got clients that are just so incredibly excited about what they do that every single person that leaves a session is just incredible to sell, and they're able to close at tremendously higher margins because of the magnetism of their the way that they talk about what they do. And the people that are truly magnetic as well often know themselves very well, and they're connected to who they are. And ultimately, they don't make excuses for themselves. They are authentically themselves. So I want you guys to grab either, if you have from the worksheet that I sent over, you can grab in the notes there and you can just type into it. I want you to write down for me a couple of people that you trust in your life. I'll give you guys 30 seconds or so to write down a couple of names. And so looking at that list, the thing that you will note when looking at it is that those people that you have that really meaningful connection with, there's no emotional mask, there's no physical mask. You know who that person is inside and out. And that's the core of human relationship. And so what I want us to be is to be able to not have a business mask, to really be able to be true to who we are. The thing that I personally experienced myself, and this was a couple years ago, my career went from initially before I had gone to college, I wanted to be an attorney. I ended up deciding I wanted to go in a completely different direction. I'm a super analytical mind, very linear thinker. I'm not the creative, but I went to a fine art school. I went to photography school. And I then, after having started my photography business, having grown that, and then realizing I hated my life and that wasn't something I was meant to do, and I shut that business down, I ended up going into accounting because I had been doing that for my dad was a CPA. I had been doing that for so many years. So it felt like the natural thing that I could just go to be able to pay bills. I ended up landing at an agency and I worked for many years from there as a financial controller and then CFO of that pretty substantially sized agency. And because I was a fine art major and now an accountant, and I was now being interviewed in a podcast, I had been at that point in my life a bit ashamed of the fact that now I'm pursuing this financial career, this analytical career, but I was and had gone to school for creative. And I was asked on a podcast, "Where did you go to school?" And I had purposefully tried to mute this piece of my past. And I was angry when I got asked this question. And after the podcast recording, and I answered the question honestly, it said what my background was. After the podcast ended, I went through this exploration of myself. Why am I actually really ashamed by this? Like, what's actually going on? And I had already said it. So, like, it was now this catalyst for me to start talking about it more openly. And I started recognizing that not only was this not something I shouldn't be ashamed about because it's part of my life, it's part of who I am, and it's part of why I'm able to do my job really well because I did foster that creative part of my mind. And I started to scream it from the mountaintops. And that actually allowed for me to endear myself more to my ideal client, to you, because I also understand the creative mind. Now I spent my time around it. I'm now married to a fine artist as well and a creative, and it's a part of my history. It's a part of who I am, and I needed to own it. But there's pieces of that, and like you as well, where that kind of came in. It's that kind of idea, and maybe an embarrassing now metaphor that I'm saying this story and then going into that, but it's kind of this idea of like when you're a teenager, right? When you're still trying to discover yourself and you're trying to fit in, it doesn't feel nice when you're at this place where you're like, I have all of these different pieces of myself that I'm trying to move, and it doesn't really feel safe. And as you get older, you feel able to be more yourself, you're more accepting of yourself, you're able to be more authentic, and ultimately you get kind of out of that awkward teenage phase. And for some of you, you may be in that awkward teenage agency phase. And I want you to be able to not just fit in, but I want you to stand out. So, what I want to quickly go through, I'm going to grab my notebook real quick. 1 second. I want to go through the kind of model. And I'm going to check out the chat real quick as well, just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Yeah.
There are some notes to self here, some questions, some things we want to be reminded of. So the chat's following you.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So what I want to talk about is kind of the connection between all of the different pieces of the differentiator, so you understand how it all fits together and how it all just makes this great sort of mesh, right? So you have this connection between your own motivation and your story. The pieces we want to define is why them, and ultimately, why not other people? Why not other industries or other personas? Why, if you already had all the money in the world, why would you still work with them? And what ultimately gets you out of bed every day? On the other side, what interests you? What things do you read about? What things do you think that you spend time considering in your personal life? Why do you enjoy the work? How does it make you feel? And what has ultimately led you this point in your life? And it's the connection between your motivation and your story that actually creates your true differentiator. And so that's what we're going to define today. Really being able to stand out. So what I want us to do is I want us to start to actually define what your why is and ultimately how it connects to your ideal client. Why them? Why the work? So we're going to write it out. We're going to take a moment and we're going to put it on paper. And there's no wrong answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight it. We're going to write it out. So I'm going to do the exercise for myself here. And then I want you guys to do the same. So here's.
And sorry, Robert, you can use the workbook if you have it downloaded, or feel free to also use the private notes in Butter. No one has access to them, so they're for your eyes only. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. So here's mine. I love art. Always have. I grew up with a camera in my hand. I ended up with a commercial photography degree, as I mentioned. I ended up starting a photo business, and I hated it. I started a job and went into accounting. It was really the only other thing I knew. I ended up, by happenstance, I landed at an agency. And I fell in love. It was the ability to now, it's the psychology meets analytical. It allows for me to take my analytical, my years of public accounting, and apply it to an agency. Be able to see the story behind the numbers. I learned a ton. Got all the bruises, scrapes, memories to go along with it, all of it. That agency became a huge success. I left. Did it again. I consulted. I ended up working after that with a load of different industries again. And then I hated it again. I missed the creative people. I think you kind of get it at this point. What we want to do after we've done that, so we're just going to go through and we're going to highlight the pieces that are important. I love art, accounting, my analytical mind. I fell in love with the industry. I was able to apply my knowledge to help someone. I learned a lot. I'm not smarter than anyone. I just have all the bruises, scrapes, and scars to teach me. I was able to do it again and again with other people and work with the people that I truly am inspired by. So what I want us to do is I want us to take 5 minutes and I want you to do the exact same thing, unfiltered. Just write out your story. What happened? Where you went, where you've been, what you learned, what you liked, what you didn't. No filter. Then we can go through and distill and figure out exactly what pieces we want to shout from the mountaintops. So I'll go ahead and put on some thinking music. I can't find the music bar for some reason.
I'll do that for you right now.
Thank you. We'll put on some thinking music while you guys do that and get that going. And if you guys have any questions in the chat, I'm happy to help. Exactly. 100% is very much like Ikigai. I'm not familiar with the trust equation by Dr. Charles Green, but now I have to look it up. Fair warning to everybody, we're going to be doing an exercise in just a moment that will highlight if you've done the homework as well. So giving you guys a little bit of some advice, some forewarning. right. We're going to go ahead and do a breakout. We're going to go into groups of 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to share the story we just wrote out. And we're going to have each person in the group spend 30 seconds or so affirming the pieces that resonated of your story with them. Just help you clarify the highlighted moments and the pieces that other people hear within your story that resonate, that connected. So, Anna Marie, if you want to go ahead and open up the breakouts, we'll do 2-minute shares and then allow for each person in the room to give a little bit of feedback. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
Yes, have fun. you're hearing. I'm ending the session. See you back in a minute.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. I'd love to hear from one or two of you how sharing your story felt and what you learned in the feedback from someone. If I can get a hand raise for one or two shares. AJ, go for it, bud.
Right. I mean, everybody's story is so inspiring, and the journey that each one of us has been through. So it was pretty nice to learn that, how the twists and turns of the journey has led us to do what we are doing right now. And I see that, yes, there is a, connection in every story.
Mm-hmm.
And the transition points I see, I felt there are patterns of we shifting ourselves, if I may, or reinventing ourselves, so to say. And I felt that there were two uh, turning points that everyone, at least, we were three of us, or all three of us, we felt there were two turning points in our life,
Mm-hmm.
which we have been through. I'm sure many of others could have gone through some few more. And the second turning point has been far more transformational, where we have become very committed to the identity that we have discovered about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, the challenge lies to be able to convey that 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 story and that emotion, in a business context. But amongst
Yeah.
us, we are like a community, so it's so easy to share our story, and you will get it, and we can relate to it. But how we convey that to a client or a business, I'm still having questions, and I'm wondering about that part of it.
Yeah. Do you want to ask? Thank you so much for sharing. And I 100% agree with everything that you just shared. You had a question in there. It sounded like you want to go ahead and ask a question. We're in Q&A right now, so it's a perfect time to ask that question.
All right. So my related question that popped up while I was listening in to my group members' story is, I could relate to their story. They could relate to mine, and amongst us, we could share it uh, without the fear of being judged,
Yep.
and sharing the same story with a potential client. uh, do we have to do something about it? Because, how much of yourself you want to expose to a client, and in certain contexts you stand out and you are different than what
Yep.
they expect you to be. Like, I always tell all my white friends that, my color comes in my way of success. uh, my language or my accent also comes in my way of success. But in my
Uh-huh.
context, I'm a superstar, I'm a rock star. But when I collaborate, co-create with people outside, a lot of things are, coming in my way of
Sure.
being able to be myself. uh, so when you talk about authenticity, and if I be my authentic self, you're not going to like me, because I am come from a very different world. So how do I share my story which appeals to the entire world, and not just to my limited uh, world
Yep.
that I operate in?
So my opinion is that I'm not looking to connect with the entire world. I'm looking to connect with the
I
people that I'm
am looking.
intended to.
I am looking. So that's my question.
Everyone, the whole world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people. You're looking to connect with some 8 billion people. You're gonna be
Well,
really busy.
I mean, not and not the billions of people, but what I really meant was to be able to work across my little, boundaries, borders. Borders would be a right word,
Yep.
and cut across, diverse cultures, uh, and so on and
The
so forth.
The thing that I would, and so it's even those pieces of it, right? Like even sharing those items of what you just shared of the concept of fear of being judged can also allow for you to have a connection with someone and talking about those types of things in like a capabilities presentation, right? So like one of the things I'll work on with a client, because this what we're doing today is going to apply to your website copy, is going to apply to your proposals, is going to apply to the way that you talk with clients in meetings, is going to apply to your capabilities deck. But let's talk about it just from like the context of a capabilities deck. The way that I actually have in the vast majority, when you look at agency capabilities decks, the vast majority of it is essentially a pitch. Here's the reason why this agency is phenomenal. This is why you want to choose us. This is all of these things about us and why you want us. My entire opinion of it is that there's this concept that I talk about warm chocolate chip cookies. And I want you guys to be the warm chocolate chip cookies. It's, let's say that I'm running late and a friend's coming to my house. And the friend walks in the door and I'm like, hey, John, I'm running a couple minutes late. Do you want some chocolate chip cookies? It's going to be, no, I'm okay. I'll just sit on the couch. I'll see you in 5 minutes. But if he shows up to my house, knocks on the door, I was just baking chocolate chip cookies and he can smell them when I open the door. And when he walks in the door, I say, hey, on the counter, there's some warm baked chocolate chip cookies that are sitting on a plate already served for you and a glass of milk poured right next to it. If you want them, they're there. I'll be out in 5 minutes. Fuck yeah, I'm going to go eat those chocolate chip cookies. Right? And I want you guys to position yourselves that exact same way. I'm already awesome with or without you. This is my story. This is who I am. And you can work with me or not. Like, I know I am the prize. And so that authenticity, that story, when you actually talk about it in the context of a capabilities deck, right? When you're talking about it, this is who we are. This is why we do what we do. This is why I care. This is why I get out of bed every day. This isn't about you. This is about me. And if they're able to actually understand the context of your reason why and their reason why, and they actually meet up and align, is when you actually build trust. And so why the more authentic you're actually there, the more of a connection you're going to build. And so that's the entire concept of being able to actually have your person, the person that you're intended to work with, the person that respects you, that values you, is going to pay you, is going to be attracted to that story. If you're trying to be anything but that, I mean, we've all been trained throughout our lives to be able to see fake. And the less that we are that, the more that people will trust us. And the people that are not meant to work with us, I know I'm not meant for everybody, right? Like I'm 100% not, and that's okay.
Yeah, if I may, add to your small little story about your warm cookies, and if my friend has gone and eaten it, my business mindset would, say, hey, okay, that's $2 for every cookie you ate. Just put it in a jar there.
I would say 5.
Whatever, whatever. Yeah, and if you want a beer,
Those
that's for
chocolate chip
four
cookies are
dollar.
delicious, man. Come on.
A glass of milk is $1.
100% find your
Yeah,
tribe.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Any questions about how this can apply? How do you take this? And I'll wrap it up a little bit more as we close. But any questions you have around how exactly you can apply this to your marketing, to your messaging, to how you can work with clients? Feel free to unmute. Have we solved all the differentiation agency problems today? Yes. Okay. If you do have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. The thing that I want you guys to recognize fully as we close out today is that so often we are told that our brand and our business needs to be segmented from us. And I don't agree. Let's look at the likes of Apple, for example. Apple synonymous with Steve Jobs, his vision, who he was, what he wanted, and it actually grew because of that.
I think Krisa has a question.
Oh, go for it. Unmute. Oh,
Hi,
you're
Robert.
muted. Hello.
Hi, Robert. I loved that you talk about immersing your personal brand into yourself and making it very much yourself and authentically you. My question is basically when you are building your brand and making it very personal, that you're exposing yourself out there and becoming very vulnerable, how do you start separating yourself when it becomes too much and overwhelming, that work and in your business?
So there's a couple of things, right? I mean, there's many layers to the question that you just asked. The first thing that is always my question is there's two things. One, is this a hell yes or a hell no for me, right? If it's not a hell yes, then that means it's a hell no. That I'm only doing the hell yeses. Like it has to be something that I absolutely want to do. And if it's not, how do I move it off of my plate? And if it's not something that's even worth moving from my plate, how do I just completely discard it? Recognizing that ultimately in every yes that I say, and this was a huge breakthrough for me, is every yes that I'm giving, there's an inherent no built in. There's only 24 hours in a day. So I have to recognize that if I say yes to this thing, then maybe I'm saying no to dinner with my husband. If I say yes to this thing, maybe I'm saying no to growing the business. If I say yes to this thing, it's how do I recognize what is actually happening as far as and I want to make sure that, am I answering your question fully?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that happens loads, and there's obviously like many stages to this, right? The key in the first piece that I did in going through is what is like the do, delegate, discard, right? The sort of triple D concept of, is this something that I should be doing? If not, is this something that I should be delegating? And if not, is this something that I should be discarding? The other thing is, even within the things that if you should be doing it, is this something that is going to move the needle today? If it's not going to move the needle today, then it goes into the later pile. The other thing that was incredibly, incredibly pivotal for me was the concept of time blocking. And if you guys are not doing it, like it changed my entire world. I'm on a 4-monitor setup. So like if I had my notification set up, like my email would be going off, I'd be getting a Slack message over here, get a team message over here, and then my cell phone's getting a text message. Like there's so many different forms of communication that are ultimately pulling for our attention all the time. And we can't multitask. As a species, we know we can't. And yet we do it every single day. It raises our cortisol levels, it removes our attention, it makes us less efficient, makes us less effective. On average, a white collar worker wastes 6 hours of their day distracted because they're interrupted on average every 3 minutes. And it takes you 5 to 10 minutes to get back into focus. So you never actually get into focus. In one instance, in a time study I did with a $8 million agency, I recognized what was going on reviewing their time study and like their screen captures and everything. And I called their IT team that night when I recognized this, and I had them turn off email notifications, Slack notifications, all the notifications on every single computer across the office. Within 2 weeks, they had $1.2 million of unbilled time, of admin time. We recouped 75% of it in 2 weeks by just turning off notifications. You're losing so much time and focus with that. Time blocking, knowing where you need to be, and keeping your mind there is incredibly important. So the thing I want you guys to be thinking about, and I know that we have like 4 minutes left, I want you guys to think about the understanding that ultimately the business really should be a reflection of you at this point. I know that it's counter to what you hear as far as a lot of advice, but at the size that you are, until you're hundreds of millions of dollars, it is really about you. And that's okay. Otherwise, why own the business? It really should be a reflection of you. So state what's true, state authentically who you are, and you don't need to make it grandiose. You're great already, exactly who you are. You don't need to overinflate it. Just be authentically yourself. Let's define it. Let's share it. Let's wordsmith it, right? And then publish it everywhere. In your About Us page, on your hero, across all of your marketing, in your emails, share your story. Share what you've learned. Share how you helped. Share what mistakes you made. Like roughly 10, 15% of my email marketing includes, I did this thing wrong, and here's what I learned. and here's what was right. And they're like, wow, that was inspiring. That really helped me, because now they can actually learn from all the blunders that I made, right? Like I said at the beginning, I'm not smarter than any of you. I just have all the scars and bruises and scrapes to have learned from my mistakes, and that's it. So want to give you guys a little bit of a gift as well. I've got 3 things in this link. There's the agency aura. It's a quiz to allow for you to do a little bit of a personality evaluation of who you are as an agency owner against who your business is. Give you guys some distinction of the things that you should be considering about who you are as a person and how it interacts with both your team and with your business. A copy of my book for agencies that are doing the 250 that are wanting to grow 250, 150,000 a year, wanting to grow to 7 figures plus. So how that journey will be. And then ultimately, if you are wanting to continue this conversation and have some questions about how you can apply, there's a link for you guys to be able to book a call and have a little bit of a chat as well. So I'm happy to have a chat and help distill it with you guys and get you guys working, moving forward.
Okay. I think we all need to give Robert a round of applause. Thank you for that. Guys, I enabled the soundboard for you, so if you press S2. Thank you. Robert,
Thank you
that
so much,
was
everybody.
such an insightful chat. I think a lot of people don't. The chat was the chat box was popping off with a lot of personal reflections and insights. So thank you for your time and for sharing your tips on how we become more truly authentic to ourselves and how that can help our business. So thank you,